In October 1962, U.S. surveillance planes captured a terrifying development in the Cuban jungle. The Soviet Union was secretly installing nuclear launch sites. This placed a strike capability exactly 90 miles from the Florida coast. John F. Kennedy faced a vacuum of safe options. A direct military strike risked immediate Soviet retaliation, while doing nothing left a nuclear gun to America's head. Across the country, children were already practicing for a world where their only defense was a wooden desk. Kennedy chose to enforce a naval blockade, placing a wall of warships in the Atlantic, while opening a secret channel to negotiate with Moscow. For 13 days, the planet waited. The standoff only ended when both sides agreed to a mutual de-escalation, narrowly avoiding a nuclear exchange. This gamble showed how the presidency had changed. It was no longer just about leading a nation. It was about making the single choice that determines if the world continues to exist. Long before the Cold War, the very concept of the presidency was a risk. In the late 1700s, the world expected leaders to rule until they died. It was the only model of stability most people knew. The United States was incredibly fragile, surrounded by hostile empires and internal debt. At the time, the safest way to prevent a total collapse was for a single, strong leader to hold on to absolute power indefinitely. But George Washington made a revolutionary choice. After 2 terms, he simply walked away. By risking short-term political instability, Washington proved that the American experiment could survive the departure of its most popular leader. He cemented the tradition of the peaceful transfer of power. Once the institution was stable, the focus of presidential gambles shifted to the map. In 1803, Napoleon Bonaparte made a sudden, desperate offer to sell the entire Louisiana Territory to Thomas Jefferson. This yellow section shows the scale of the deal. To find $15 million, Jefferson had to violate his strict belief that the Constitution didn't allow purchasing land. He took the leap, doubling the country overnight, expanding borders to the Rockies. Jefferson set a clear precedent. A president will stretch the law to its breaking point if the geopolitical payoff is massive enough. 40 years later, James K. Polk took expansion to its most aggressive extreme. He campaigned on a promise to reach the Pacific Ocean, no matter the cost. He provoked a brutal war with Mexico to seize California and the Southwest. It was a calculated use of the military to redraw the continental map. The campaign worked. The U.S. walked away with over 500,000 square miles of new territory, completing its footprint from coast to coast. However, every new acre won in the war sparked a bitter fight in Washington. Western expansion transformed from a national goal into a zero-sum struggle over whether that new soil would be slave or free. Polk secured the Pacific coast, but the internal tension over the new land shattered the nation's political peace. By trying to win the West, he ensured the North and South would eventually have to settle the slavery question on the battlefield. In the modern era, the most effective gambles moved from the battlefield to the negotiating table. For decades, the U.S. refused to recognize Mao Zedong's communist government, treating China as a permanent adversary. In 1972, Richard Nixon broke that stalemate. He personally flew to Beijing to shake hands with the very leaders the U.S. had spent years isolating. There was a deep logic to the move. By befriending China, Nixon drove a strategic wedge between Beijing and Moscow, reversing the Soviet Union's strategic advantage during the Cold War. It proved that an unexpected handshake can be more effective than a fleet of warships. Today, America's modern borders and its ongoing political stability are the direct remnants of these massive, high-stakes choices. History turns on the minutes where a president's only alternative to a guaranteed catastrophe is a leap of faith. What secret, high-stakes wagers are being made behind closed doors right now? Let us know in the comments, and hit the like and subscribe buttons to see more stories from the edge of risk.